there, welcome to the Bridge Podcast, sharing with you top tips and advice from top employers to help to guide you on your job hunting and career journey. My name is Ajis Ragazi. I have several roles in digital marketing, and in today's special episode, I'm here to have a conversation and hook up everything about HR, people, and culture in a startup environment. Today, I also have exciting news for you. I have Jerviel Lim, Head of People and Culture from Tatsu Works. He has spent more than 5 years in developing agile human-centric HR and workplace culture across startups, nonprofit, and education. Hi, welcome, Jerviel. How are you?
Hi, to everyone listening out there. Nice to be able to connect with you over this podcast. Excited to see where this conversation will lead and hope that it inspires you somehow.
Thank you so much for coming to our podcast. To get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you start your career and what's your plan?
Right. So I came into HR maybe like halfway through my career. I've been working for almost, I guess, 13 years or so. Before that, I was spending most of my time in like semi-government places, agencies, doing a lot more program management work, but kind of related to employment landscape. That's where I kind of, speak to a lot of HR practitioners, getting a hang and some insights into some HR practices. So initially, I thought that I would be a career coach because I was doing a little bit of quite a lot of career counseling back then. But I think it was halfway in my career when I was going to startup. That's where I realized that I wanted to do HR. I'm very interested to do HR because I think it's a very fascinating world over there. When people also ask me, why I chose to go into HR, I actually have quite a very untraditional answer, which is, most of us join a certain occupation because we are inspired by someone, right? Like, you want to be a policeman because you watch a police show, or you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a doctor for whatever reasons that you saw good deeds that they did. But I wanted to become HR because I saw too many bad HR practices. Like, I was wondering, is that how HR really operates? Like, isn't HR supposed to take care of these people, making sure that they enjoy themselves, they are paid fairly at work. So I went into HR, yes, with interest in HR because of my past history, but also hugely inspired and largely inspired by some not so, I guess, in my perspective, human-centric practices, and decided that, hey, let me go in there and, maybe try to save the world in a way.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned about from the government, and then you work in startup, and then you got inspired by a lot of, let's say, a problem in there. In your perspective, like how does that transition count for you, and how did you manage to get into Tatsu Works?
Wow, that's a very. I mean, I was in a couple of different places before I really joined Tatsu. Given the opportunity to go over to Tatsu, I don't know. I guess when I went in, I just had that passion to kind of wanting to save the HR world, wanted to fix things and all that. So yeah, I went into my first HR role without any formal education in HR. Like the only education I had nearest was like psychology, but that wasn't really HR specific. That was HR involves a lot of operations. But of course, right now I'm very thankful that psychology comes into a very strong play when I do HR work, because we deal with humans. That's what our job entails, right? That's what it focuses on. And to deal with different types of personalities and all that requires a little bit of psychology kind of background and knowledge, right? To know how to interact, how to negotiate, how to take care of their feelings, how to empathize, and so on and so forth. But back to your question, it's that I just I don't know, I forced myself to read a lot. I have this also very untraditional mindset, is that I think the best way to learn HR is actually not through textbooks. Like I'm not shooting down people who spend years of research, PhD lecturers who go into developing concepts and theories, which we kind of still use it right now, right? Like nine box theory and so on and so forth. Nothing against that. I mean, they're still useful. But I think the best way to learn it is actually when you're on the job and actually reading a lot of books. And when I mean books, I actually read books such as a lot of the non-fiction books, like even biographies. One of the book that really changed my whole perspective about HR was this book called Powerful by Patty McCord. Like, this is the book I recommend everyone. If you just go into HR or you're still in HR for 10 years, that is the book that you should read. So Patty McCord was the chief people officer in Netflix. She was the first generation of chief people officer. And I can tell you, and she was the one who also participated in developing the culture deck, which a lot of us should know of, right? The Netflix culture deck that kind of revolutionized how we should treat people, how we should run benefits, how we want to build culture and build teams, etc. Right? That was the key book that changed my life. It just topples my whole mindset about HR. And since then, yeah, I started to read a lot of other books, Simon Sinek, Dave Orick, and all that. I think that these are the books that you kind of read and understand, like in the real world application. Yeah,
Right.
so that's how I kind of transited. But in terms of moving into Tatsu, I guess it's just, I don't know, sometimes you just got to trust the process. I was in startups, I then was retrenched. I felt that life was gone, and then I decided to give up on this HR. Stop trying to be so passionate about work, and then I went on to other big places just to be part of the machine. And then I realized that actually I didn't want to be part of a machine. I want to create the machine, right? I want to be part of
Right.
creating the space. I think startup is the place where you can do that. So then I went back to startup, was in a SaaS company, and then Tatsu reached out to me and say, there's an asset opportunity here in the Web3. And I was like, oh, Web3 is very new to me. I have no idea. I mean, I know crypto. I don't play crypto. I don't know NFTs. I just know the terminologies. But I was like, well, when would this next chance come again, right? Like, people is going to wave. I mean, people's right now waving hand at you and say, join us, even though I did not have the knowledge about Web3. And so why not now, right? So
Right.
I went into Tatsu. I joined them since, I think, March, April. And it has been a brilliant journey so far. Exciting things that we are building. A terrific team that I'm working with. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. You talk about your career journey and then how to get into Tatsu. And speaking of what you're doing right now, which is like people and culture, I want to ask you, what do people think and what do you actually do as the head of people and culture do, and what it looks like on a daily basis at Tatsu?
I, mm, I don't get a lot of questions of like, um, what people assume that I do. I mean, the question I tend to get a lot is, why is it not called HR? Why is it called people and culture? I tend to answer a lot about that. And you say, oh, is it just a branding thing that you're trying to do here? And I said no, because I feel that the word HR is actually very too traditional, and we only see human as resource and not human as human or human as people. And I think over the years, we also understand from a series of things that's happening around the world, ever since COVID, we talked about remote work culture. We have our staff, right, who is very right now passionate about social causes, right? Recently, we saw one of Netflix when they kind of supported one of the standout speaker who was talking against transgender, for example, right? We start to see that actually a lot of our staff are actually very passionate about these social causes. And I think the word culture then becomes another keyword inside the word HR. But it's so embedded in the word HR that it doesn't kind of spell as itself. So yeah, I tend to spend a bit more time explaining, like, we are not called HR, and I don't want to be called HR. I want to be called people and culture, because it's the most straightforward way that you can understand that what Jerviel here is doing is to take care of the people and to build an awesome culture here. Yeah. So so right now I'm a one-person team with 40 over colleagues that I'm supporting. So I kind of built everything from scratch. So because Tatsu is kind of new in that sense, so I do everything from scratch, and I love it. That's why I left all the big places, because I didn't want to be part of the machine, right? I want to create the machine. So yeah, I go in, taking care anything end to end, right, from recruitment, onboarding, offboarding, designing processes. Right now, we actually just kickstart our OKRs. kind of cycle, teaching people how to use OKRs, helping our managers and team leads to know how to build rapport, how to guide, how to coach, and all that. So yeah, it's a lot of things that I'm doing, and I actually love it, right? Some people like to be in a huge HR team, but I
Right.
like it to be like lean and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Speaking of what your process, you mentioned about process, and can you share us a little bit about how do you hiring people and what is the process? What are the top things that you would like to see in someone's CV, resume, or profile where when they're applying job at Tatsu?
I guess this is something that is just across all my other jobs, not just particularly in Tatsu. I think resume is definitely important. A lot of talk have been about, oh no, resume is obsolete and all that, but I feel that it is a name card that you hold. A resume represents your personal branding, so I still feel that it's important to have a resume and all that. And of course, meeting maybe 60 to 70% of the job requirements. I don't expect anybody to meet 100% of the requirements. Let's be honest to
Right.
all the HR people
All
here.
the
Let's just
jobs.
raise your
Yeah.
hand. Yeah, like when we write the job description, we write it as if like we want a unicorn from planet don't know where, right? Like it doesn't exist on planet Earth. So if someone who can meet about 60-70% of the requirements, I'm ready to talk to them, because I think what matters most is actually the attitude. Like I've met brilliant people, I've met smart people, capable developers, engineers, marketers, and all that. But you see that the way they hold themselves in the interview, like laying back, crossing their hands, or speaking in a tone where they kind of talk down on you because I may not know marketing that well, but they kind of say like, oh, you don't know. I don't. They okay. Some of them would just tend to say things like, I'm not sure if you know. I'm not sure if you know. I'm like, there's no need to talk down in this way, right? Yeah. So yes, I care about what they have done, but I also care more about the attitude. Do I really care about where they study? I don't. Because right now we can learn anything from anywhere. We can learn from Udemy, we can learn from Coursera, we can learn from YouTube. So
Yeah.
what if you've gone
Yeah.
through, I mean, sure, yes, you went to Harvard, right? And I'm sure in Harvard, the curriculum is rigorous and robust and all that. But it really doesn't matter to me, because if your attitude just sucks, I don't want you, right? One
Right.
of the things that we use in startup a lot is that we don't want a competent jerk. Like we don't want someone who is just brilliant at what they're delivering, but they end up offending everyone in the team. That's not what I want. Yeah. So these are perhaps the things I will look out for. And it's very hard to capture things like attitude, right? Yeah, sometimes you may ask a lot of questions in interview, and sometimes there are people who are able to kind of portray that image that they want you to see, but until then they join you in the team and you realize that, this is not what they said. So yeah.
Right. Right. Speaking of things that you do on a daily basis, does head of people operations have like KPI?
Wow. I mean, of course, different pillars of work have different KPIs, right? And I think, like for example, recruitment, right? Like you need to find the people like yesterday. When the manager can tell you, oh, I need this role, but actually they want it like yesterday. They did that time for you. So of course you have things like time to hire, etc., etc., and then pay, equity, and all that. But actually, I guess the ultimate objective of all KPIs is back to my title, which is people and culture, which is, are we bringing awesome people and building awesome culture? That's the most important thing. So yes, maybe time to hire is a very important KPI. But I've met managers or leaders who have asked me, why are we spending so long to hire someone, into the company, right? I thought we have many resumes and applications, and all that, where are these people? But I'm like, you wouldn't want to just bring anyone, right? Because anyone who comes through that door and join us is going to make or break our culture. So I want to make sure I do my role as a people and culture person, as your gatekeeper, as your OG, your old guard here, making sure that the person that I pull through this door is someone you feel safe with, and we all feel safe with, and we can work with to protect the culture. Yeah. So
Right.
I know that there are a lot of metrics and all that. And to be honest, I'm not a matrix person. To be really honest, I hate numbers. So all I care about is whether I'm building people and I'm building culture. I'm building a place where people feel passionate, driven, excited to come to work, that they know that their peers are inspiring them to be better. Like there's this friendly competition among them. Like, oh, you did this in your coding, I want to do this too, because it just feel that I can do it as well. I want that kind of like fire in that culture,
Right,
right?
right.
So yeah, correct.
Cool, awesome. So, next questions. What are the things that you've been trying to tackle the challenge in the quotes of HR should be better? What are the things that are important?
I think this connects to why I joined HR, because just now, like I mentioned, I've seen some not so good practices, or practices that are not so human-centric or staff-centric, right? I think one thing that I've always been trying to advocate wherever I go, especially for my team, is I never want my team members to be my people and culture team members to be stuck behind a computer. Get out, get out of the table, get out of your laptop, go and talk to people. Yes, of course, making sure people's leaves is being approved, MC is being clear. Yeah, those are, people getting paid on time. Those are important, but that doesn't take up like 28 days of your work. It doesn't. Go out there, build rapport with people, understand what their struggle is. Yeah, because I've seen many, HR always just kind of, hide behind their laptops or computers, don't talk to anybody. One classic example that I always give to a lot of people is, when you join a company, that's the first day you see your HR. And when you leave the company, that's the second day you see your HR. You only see your HR on these 2 days. Your first day you join and the last day you leave this company. You don't see them during that period of time. Like you're wondering where's your HR? You never come out. Yeah, maybe they come out during like company dinner and dance, or maybe when there's some kind of like wellness event, they appear. But that's pretty much about it. HR always go lunch on their own. They don't go out and mingle with every other departments. I
Right.
topple that entirely whenever I go into my area, whenever I go into new companies. I tell my teammates, my interns even, go out and talk to the people, go and have lunch with them. Even though you may be like in two different countries, do a Zoom lunch, do it, build rapport. There's nothing more important than taking care of people and understanding what their pain points are, what their roadblocks are. Because they are going to have struggles that they can't tell their managers. Sometimes the staff roadblock are the managers, but they just can't tell the managers that they are the roadblocks, right? So we
Right,
have to be
right.
the one to help facilitate those discussions. So that is one thing I'm trying to do. Is recently I read a book which I thought it was just kind of wrap up this whole thing that I'm trying to explain. People want innovation, not tradition anymore. I'll repeat, people want innovation, not tradition anymore. And I thought that's what it means. That HR needs to reinvent itself. Maybe we should just start throwing away the title of what HR and start using people, right? There are already companies who are using people, culture, and talent whatsoever. Really, people are using that. So throw away the word HR. And start building that capability within HR, which is they're supposed to go out there to build rapport and connections. Yeah, I've seen a lot of HR BPs who are just, talking to the line managers and the chief HR officer and C-suite, but they rarely go there to talk to the staff. Why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
The staff are the ones who are doing the work day in, day out. They would sometimes know the job better than the manager or the reporting officer. So go out and talk to them. I don't see why that, so I just think that sometimes, talking about these kinds of irks me, because I feel that there's so much things to kind of fine tune in the HR space. But I think to get started, I think everyone out there, if a HR role, close your laptop now, turn to someone on your left, on your right in the office and say, do you want to go for lunch? Do you want to do you have a coffee? Start there. Talk to people. That's what HR is. We build people, we bring people in, we retain people. But it's not just about the money, the training programs, the yoga sessions that you do. Those are great. Those are just, to me, just icing on the cake. What matters is that the staff have to feel that, do they belong here? Do they feel connected here? And for us in the HR or people and culture space, that's where we can play the most important role. Mind blown.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that just like represent everything that's a lot of been going on around people in employment, and you talk about innovation. And speaking of trends and of recruiting and innovation, and people talking about diversity, and at the same time, I still hear people talking about like the war for talent. So I want to ask you, what is your thoughts on the war for talent?
Hmm. Um, I have two answers to that, right? So let me speak from the employer's point of view first. The war has really started many years ago. We've been talking about this for the past decade. It didn't happen because of Web3 or it didn't happen because of COVID. COVID Web3 just kind of, expedite the process, make it larger, pulling that can of worms. The war of talent has started many, many years ago, right? And you can see that actually right now, as there are multiple generations, right, in this time right now, is actually the most exciting time because you have actually 4 generations working at the same time, still in the same timeline,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And so I think for the war for talent is, yes, money makes a difference, but you can't throw money at that problem because someone's going to offer more than you. And, it becomes a very bad kind of ecosystem, right? Whereby people just, different companies just throwing money out more than each other. And it actually just inflate everything, right? Because we end up not paying because of the talent. We end up just paying because we just need to get that person. But we are not actually paying for the competencies. So then everybody's salary just kind of go haywire. And some smaller companies or startups wouldn't be able to pay, right? So that kind of just upset the market. But I'm not an economist person, so I'm not going to address that.
Yeah.
But what I want to say here for the employer's point of view is that the war has really started. It has been there. And if you have not changed the way you handle HR or people and culture, you are already losing out. Right now, you perhaps some of the companies just trying to catch up with, okay, someone's offering ESOP, let's do ESOP right now. Or someone's offering unlimited leave, let's do that right now. Yeah, but that's not good enough. When candidates interview with you, they want to understand a lot more. What are you building? Simon Sinek always talk about what is the why. Why are you doing what you are doing as a company? Why these are your beliefs? Candidates look out for that. So talent war for talent doesn't mean that you just throw money to pay more and all that. It's not necessarily just that. Candidates right now tend to ask a lot about the why. So for HR in particular, please don't just go through the motion of just interviewing someone. You have to understand why your company exists, because you have to be able to explain that. Because sometimes when you're not able to explain that, the candidates already lost faith in you, because it means that the why of the company is not penetrated throughout all the different part of the organizations. So that's the employer perspective, or my answer to employer. For candidates, I know right now it's an employee market. And right now you are out there shouting out the prices that you want because you know that you're in hot favorite. If you're a blockchain developer, you're like, oh, I can command 15K USD, blah, 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 blah. Good for you, right? But please understand that this is not sustainable. You'll come to a period of time whereby the market will adjust itself and the salary may adjust down. Yeah. Number 2 is that you cannot expect everyone to pay you 15K. They're just companies who are smaller. I mean, we have companies of different sizes. Maybe Google can pay you 15K. Maybe Microsoft can pay you 20K. That's great, right? But you cannot take that and say everyone else in the smaller enterprise or medium enterprises have to offer me the same thing. They can't. You have to adjust your expectations. Yeah. So I guess to the candidates is just be mindful. Like if you want to go after the big brothers and sisters in the ecosystem, good for you. But if you want to go just join smaller companies, and some people like to join smaller companies. Like for me, I prefer to work in startups because that's where I create things. If you are in all the big brother and sister, you're perhaps just a nail in the entire machinery, right? You just do one part. You just do quality assurance for one feature for the rest of your 10 years there. But when you're in a startup, you get to do design everything, right? So you have to also understand which one is important to you. So that's my answer to both employers and the candidate. Because I think that this war for talent has to be balanced. It's not just company throwing more money to get more people that will solve the problem. But we also need the candidates to be very cognizant of what's going on right now. Because right now, we are actually anticipating recession. And you cannot expect that because of recession and because I'm a blockchain developer, I still command 18,000 USD per month. The market is not at that at this point in time. So you need to manage expectation.
Yeah, yeah, I love the idea of empathy in like both sides, which is important. Do you have any like word of advice for anyone who is interested in working? Let's say you want to be like you or want to working in people and culture in tech startup.
Wow, I mean, this is like me taking a time machine, going back like 6 years ago and talk to myself. A couple of I'll be greedy. There will be a couple of things I think I want my younger self to take note before I go into HR back then was it's not just good enough that you love people. A lot of people join HR because they have these assumptions about helping people. Once I had this intern who actually answered me this. I want to join HR because I want to help people. I was like, then why don't you go into healthcare
Yeah.
or social service? I said that, do you think retrenching someone is helping people? Because that's what you got to do next time in your career. You are going to let go of someone. You are going to retrench someone. That's not helping people. So I would say that if you want to go into HR, you have to be cognizant that yes, loving to talk to people, that's important. But actually one important key thing about HR, which many people tend to forget, is that you are here to create and make sure the company earns money. Actually, that's what HR does, right? We gather resources, we allocate resources, we work with we bring in great talents, we retain great talents so that we can deliver something and so that there's profit for the company. So joining HR is not just only about building great culture and bringing great people, but all these lead to something which is to bring in revenue for the company and profit the company. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because perhaps this point in time, some people will be like, listening to this, is like, oh, Jerviel is money-minded. No, I'm not. Who doesn't love money? We all do, right? Money pays for stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you see that, but you have to understand that the company has to survive and thrive. And so that then we have money to pay everyone else. Isn't that right? So I would say that if people want to go into HR, please be cognizant that it's just not good enough to only just love people and want to help people, because you can do that in social service. You can do that in healthcare. But over here in the corporate space, you need to know that whatever human decisions that you make, it has to have business impact. It will have business impact. So you also need to be very business cognizant. So that is why I love it when, slowly, and we begin to see more HR people is actually in the management table, right? Looking at the P&L and all that, because all this will affect how we want to manage our people, what kind of team we want to build, what kind of culture that can allow us to excel and perform greatly and highly, right? So yes, not just good enough to want to help people and love people. You need to know that, you have to have the business mindset. And to know that is to just learn on the job. Seriously, I learn everything on the job. I look at P&L. I mean, I'm not the best person to right now look at financial statements because it gives me headache. But at least I know how much is going out every month, how much is coming in every month. And so I can make a better decision on what kind of people I want to bring in, and etc. Right? So yeah, for me, in my 6 years of my career, I'm still learning on the job. Until now, I'm still learning on the job. For the past 6 years, when I first started in HR, I learned everything myself. So I guess the best way is to learn on the job. Like, it's great that you have a degree in HR from whatever university. Kudos to you. You got your base settled. But I guess no amount of textbooks in university teach you how to handle a difficult stuff. I'm pretty sure no textbook teach you that. No textbook teach you how to have empathy. No textbook teach you how to have real conversation when someone is not performing well at the job. All these you can only learn on the job, not through the textbook. So yeah, these are some of the things I would tell my younger self before I join HR.
Right, right. So, in your point of view, what are the most important skills for someone aspiring to become HR?
To recap what I mentioned earlier, is number one is that you need to be very business minded. because we are in a very tricky role to make sure that the company makes money, but at the same time, people are performing
Right.
and all that. Of course, also managing people's expectations, right? I mean, definitely we want to take care of our staff, but sometimes we need to look at our finances as well. So having that kind of balance mindset, so that the balanced mindset, being very thick-skinned.
Thick skin.
Yeah, like you have to go out there and want to talk to people. I mean, yes, you talk to people in interviews, but have you really spoke to your, I don't know, receptionist for the past 3 years?
Right.
Have you found out what he or she is going through? Have you talked to the engineer who has been sitting at the corner for the rest of the lunchtime for the past 2 years? Have you done that? Right? So being thick-skinned, going out to them. And I think number 3 is that this will come as a surprise, is know how to draw your own boundaries. I remember during COVID, right, there was this JPEG that was going around. A counselor, a nanny, a doctor, a psychiatrist. This role is called HR. Something along that line, right? And I understand for our role, I think people who join the HR space tend to be a little bit more human-centric and a little bit more over empathetic and very passionate towards people. But this is my own experience. You can't give to others what you don't have. So when you are burnt out, you have nothing to give to the people around you anymore. And that's dangerous. Because I went through my own burnout as well. Because I love my people so much, right? And I try to help them to solve every single thing that they have. I try to be that, Batman has this butler, I forgot his name. Like he's taking care of, Batman's every single thing, right? This butler. You can't be the butler for everyone if your organization is 40 people, 60 people, 80 people. You can't do that. Sometimes you need to know where to draw the line and say that, I know that you're sharing with me this problem, but I think it's better that you take this problem directly to your manager. Because if you try to solve everybody's single problem, you will burn out. And then you will start to realize that you hate your job. Yeah. So I think one important thing people tend to forget, HR tend to forget, is they forgot to draw boundaries for themselves. It's not to say that you do not care about everything. You do, but you have to understand that you can't solve every single issue. Just because 2 colleagues are having conflicts, you need to solve that. Maybe what you should do is to tell that colleague and say, maybe you should talk to the other person. Don't talk to me about that person. You have a problem with that person, you go talk to him or her directly. Yeah. So drawing boundaries, loving yourself, putting yourself first, I will put that as number 1 thing that you need to have before you join HR.
Right. Wow. That's, I think, very important lessons for everyone aspiring to be in HR someday. We got one more questions, which is, if people wants to see or connect with you, where can people find you and learn more about you?
Right. So people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I have my own podcast, Career Lounge, with Jerviel,
Shout out
which has
to
been running.
Career Lounge.
Yeah, which has been running for the past 5 to 6 months. But as per this recording, as we record it today, I'm actually wrapping up season 1 already with another 2 more episodes, and then I'm done. Reason being, I think I'm going to get busier. I may not have all the time to do it, but at the same time, I think 6 months has been a hell of a ride, doing podcasts. I mean, you understand how much work that goes into each episode, right?
Exactly.
This is where I draw boundaries, right? Like I need to take care of myself. I can't give to people what I don't have. So I'm going to wrap up season 1 in the next couple of weeks, and then I'm going to take a break and then go out there, explore new things, connect with new people, and see what I can bring maybe next year for season 2.
Okay, cool. You can find Jerviel on LinkedIn. And yes, Jerviel, this has been an amazing podcast interview. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm sure everybody will learn a lot from this. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks everyone out there.